right, sweethearts, what are you waiting for? Breakfast in bed? Another glorious day in the Corps. A day in the Marine Corps is like a day on the farm. Every meal's a banquet, every paycheck a fortune, every formation a parade. I love the Corps! Hey, I'm Liam, this is Rob, and if it wasn't clear from the best impression of Sergeant Apone Sergeant Apone, this week we are doing one of my top 10 movies of all time, and arguably, the greatest sequel of all time, James Cameron's 1986 Aliens. Now, I think we should get straight in on this. Is this the greatest sequel of all time? I mean, I think it's right up there. I mean, yeah. the big ones, like if you're doing a competition, you're kind of top five-ish.
Terminator
2, Godfather Part 2, Empire Strikes Back, The Dark Knight, and this. I think those are the five arguably greatest sequels of all time. Certainly if you're kind of big blockbusters, you could throw in a few more. But I got the kind of five down to this. And of course, you could make an argument for pretty much any of them, with the exception of Dark Knight, because I think it goes off the rails in the last act. But the difference with this compared to the other films, the thing that makes it stand out is that it's nothing like the first film. It's such a departure. Most of these sequels are traditional sequels. You can make an argument for Terminator 2, maybe. But this is funny enough, another Cameron film. Yeah. But this is a completely different film to Alien. It's almost like he's looked at Alien and said, well, Ridley Scott's already made the perfect monster movie.
Yeah, Alien's a suspense, horror, suspense thriller. You barely see the villain.
Xenomorph.
Yeah, you barely see it. And in this one, they thought, no, what we're going to do, we're going to double down on xenomorphs. You want some xenomorphs? We'll give you some xenomorphs. This would be fantastic as a standalone film. Like if you've never seen Alien.
It would still work. It's still got the suspense.
Ripley's explanation of how she survived is good enough. Do you know, this is
fantastic. I watched this before Alien when I was younger.
Same here. Aliens was my first foray into any of the Alien franchise.
Yeah, me too. It was. I've mentioned before on the previous podcast that kind of flurry of like 18-rated 80s movies I watched as a child, where we finally got a VHS in like 89, 90, and I watched Die Hard. That was the kind of test with my dad, where he's like, all right, it's an 18 movie. He was cool with it. And basically, because of Die Hard, he's just like, yeah, watch what you want, man. Yeah. Despite the fact that, let's be clear, Die Hard's a pretty tame 18. And then suddenly I'm watching RoboCop, I'm watching this. And as I said, I watched this before Alien, and of course I was young and stuff, but like you said, for that reason, it doesn't matter that you haven't seen Alien. The only thing it does do slightly is ruin Alien. And I think it's one of the reasons, despite the fact that Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, is a near enough perfect film, it's never going to have the same impact if you've watched Aliens first. Because like you said, the whole thing with that film is keeping the suspense. Like, what are they fighting against? What is this thing? And eventually it's revealed. And I'll never have that experience. But even this film, as you say, we think of it as this big action film, almost like a war film. Like the tagline is, this time it's war. Is that it? I think that's
the tagline, isn't it? Yeah.
It's something like that. This time it's war. And for the first hour of this film, there's not a shot fired in anger. They don't actually get to the hive until the hour mark. So yeah, you see all the equipment, and this film has some of the best military equipment of all time. But it's just all building the world or rebuilding the world, saying, oh, this is still the Alien world, this is still Ridley Scott's world, but it's building on top of it over and over again. And it's only the hour mark that you finally see the aliens. But when you see the aliens and things go south really fucking quick in this film. And again, once people start dying, you spend that whole that hour, a large part of it, of like establishing this great cast of characters. Yeah. And it's one of those things we keep coming back to, like the films that work the best.
Before you carry on, you said about and I know both of us didn't watch the special edition, and we'll get into some of the cuts from the special edition, but it is one of my favorite things from there is you've said like their equipment. Yeah. And if anyone's watched the special edition, they'll know Private Hudson, Bill Paxton's speech about talking about some of that equipment. I love that little speech.
Yeah.
I'm ready, man. Check it out. I'm the ultimate badass. State of the badass art. You do not want to fuck with me. Check it out. Hey, Ripley, don't worry. Me and my squad of ultimate badasses will protect you. Check it out. Independently targeting particle beam phalanx. Whap. Fry half of the city with this puppy. We got tactical smart missiles, phase plasma rifles, RPGs, we got sonic electronic ball breakers, we got nukes, we got knives, sharp sticks. Like, they've got everything.
They do have everything. Do you know, I totally
Oh my
forgot.
God, that hurt my head saying that.
No, you did good job. Yeah, just be clear, Rob's a little bit hungover this morning, and we are recording at just before 9 a.m. on a Sunday.
Very
so, kudos to you, sir. And what is this, your first hangover in over a year?
Yes, yeah, it's this is
No, he's doing fine. He's doing fine. Yeah, like obviously when you think of kind of, I'm not sure what you want to call it, like impressive or memorable movie props. You know, most people think of Star Wars, don't they? You think of lightsabers. You think of the ships, the X-wing, the Millennium Falcon.
It's the pulse
rifle. This is up there, and like you say, the pulse rifle is the assault rifle. It's the one every film, every video game has tried to copy since. It's the aesthetic, it's the sound, it's everything about it. But it's, you know, you'd be like, oh well, this has got the best assault rifle of all time. But it's also got the Sulaco, the weird ship. Even the fucking ships look like guns in this film. It's ridiculous. The drop ship is iconic. The even the watch, the tracker watch, made me want to get a Casio calculator watch because it looked like it when I was younger, but I wanted it with like the Velcro strap. What else was there? The flamethrower, the smart gun. Everything in this film lands. Everything is memorable.
Watch, did you want the accompaniment to the tracker watch, mind? That weird
the little beeper thing.
The little, just have some sort of vibrator in your pocket just in case you want to find somebody.
Yeah, it's that weird combination, isn't it, of kind of like retro futurism, where it's like when everybody's smoking in this film. It's like that doesn't feel very futuristic.
Everybody is smoking.
Everybody, they love to smoke in this film, but I said, even when I was younger, it's like everybody knew the APC. It's like you shouldn't know the name of that one weird little vehicle that looks very, very hard to drive. But every piece of equipment in this film like absolutely lands on a visual level. And even the Marines themselves, it's like the little like James Cameron's great at this. Like whatever you say about films like Avatar, the stuff, that all looks fantastic as well. And it's the fact that they were obviously given their Marine outfits, but they were all allowed to customize them.
Yeah.
Like they were like, make them your own. And that is, again, kind of like Star Wars in its own way. And obviously popularized by Ridley Scott in the first Alien film, is just how lived in this world looks. It's not just the fact they show up on LV-426 and everything looks fucked up. It's even up on the, the space station and stuff. Yeah. When Burke's walking down the hallway to go and see Ripley for the first time, there's like graffiti on the wall. There's just shit on the floor. Like everything feels like it's lived in, even though it's that kind of traditional white sci-fi. Even that looks kind of fucked up. It's been sitting around for years.
You said customize armor, mind. All except one got to customize their armor.
We didn't get to. So somebody didn't get to customize their armor.
Yeah, Michael Biehn.
Because he was so late to the party.
Yeah, because his most of principal photography was already done with James Remar, who we already covered from 48 Hours last week. James Remar was originally Hicks.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I was doing the research for this film. I couldn't believe I didn't know that.
James Remar was originally Hicks, and we'll get more to it in facts, but he was let go for various reasons, and they brought in Michael Biehn. And Michael Biehn wasn't allowed to customize his armor up to the point that he thought the heart and the padlock was so stupid. He hated it because he thought it looked like a bullseye. It was too late to do anything, so he just had to do it. There's even a shot of James Remar as Hicks still in the film when
Frost goes over the top.
I think it's something to do with the battle when they go into the nest.
In the hive.
Because the nest. In the hive, the nest, because it's from behind. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to tell James Remar from Michael Biehn apart. So
there is one shot in that scene though, because I was like, is that Michael? And it's obviously not him, but I've never been able to figure out who it is. There's a shot where is it Frost who has all the magazines and he gets burned, goes over the top.
The irony of being called Frost when you get burnt alive, by the way.
Yeah, which isn't fantastic for him. But like as he falls over the edge of the banister, and somebody goes over to look at him. And he gets dragged back, and I can't figure out who that is, which Marine it is.
I think that's Hudson.
It doesn't look like him. I actually thought when I read this, I was like, "That's not James Remar, is it?" Like in just a random shot.
I've got it in facts about what part it is, and I'm pretty sure it was just one scene where they actually.
It's just his back, yeah.
Yeah, it's just his back. So I don't think that's.
No, it's not him, but it's one of those like that scene is so chaotic. Where it is hard to tell because you do have these memorable characters, but some of the other Marines, it's like like Spunkmeyer, a character who has like the best name but doesn't really do much in the film.
Well, yeah,
it's
and
they're just dead.
Yeah, he's not even considered important enough to see his death.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
The last shot you see of Spunkmeyer in the theatrical version, which we both watched, and I think as well from memory, the special edition, he puts his hand on the sticky substance and he said, "Wait a minute," and she's like, "Get it," and that's the last time you see Spunkmeyer.
Yeah, you don't even know how Spunkmeyer dies. Like he dies off. Like you've got to assume the alien just kills him, but it's just this one off. But like even amongst the Marines, like most of them, you think of them as being like memorable. Obviously, Hudson, Hicks, Vasquez, stuff like that. But a few of the others, they do just kind of just die. Like, there is that build up, and then all of a sudden, 4 or 5 of them are just dead. The only one I find unforgivable is, as I quoted at the start, is Sergeant Opponent, where I'm just like, oh man, I would have liked to have seen him actually in action. All he does, after all these great speeches, he just looks a little bit shocked, like lost. But of course, a big part of that is the fact that Lieutenant Gorman is just the most useless lieutenant of all fucking time.
And because Apone is career military, he follows orders. He follows.
Yeah, he does. He does. Although I love this. I love the sleazebag in this film. Like obviously, Gorman does get a kind of a reprieve at the end of the film where he gets to go out like a bit of a hero.
Even though you say that, and Vasquez still calls him an arsehole.
Well, he is an arsehole. There's no two ways about it. But he's just out of his depth. He's not like Burke. But I love the use of like lip sweat in this film. When somebody just knows they're doing wrong or they're out of their depth, they like get some more sweat on that lip. And I'm not sure if it's a kind of nod to like Richard Nixon, like the famous first TV presidential election. And a lot of people think, oh, he lost the election because his lip was sweating. And it's just nothing looks dodgier in this world, I think, than lip sweat. And Burke and Gorman get a lot of it in this film, man. But that is one thing this film does great, man, is sleazebags. And obviously, Burke is he's an all-time great for sure.
Oh my God, he starts out like calling Ripley kiddo, trying to befriend her, everything, and then what I wanted to do was actually find an alien and bring it back. But where she figures out his plan, you can see it in his face as well. He's like, Jesus Christ, she figured out my plan pretty quick to get one of them impregnated and then to shut the freezers off on certain of the Marines so he could just make up any story, jettison them out into space. He's like, wow, that's... But
that is the great thing about Paul Reiser's performance as Burke, and I think the character himself, is that he's an opportunist, or I guess, if you wanted to put a positive twist on it, a survivalist. And I think at the start, he was being sleazy and he did want to get an alien back, but his plans were never as dark as they became. Basically, you can see it in the part earlier in the film where, they talk about, they want to bring the facehuggers back. Yeah. And Ripley goes and confronts him. And then she says that whole like speech about, she knows what he did on LV-426, how he ignored things and how he kind of knew. And he's like, "I was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call." It's like, a bad call? People died. And she's like, "Oh, they're gonna pin you to the wall for this." And it was that moment when I think he went into self-survival mode. He's like, listen, if she gets back, I'm going to end up in prison. So all of a sudden, he just doubles down on nefarious shit. And you can see like the bit with the camera when he's locking Ripley and Newt in the room with the facehugger. He's not, like, he doesn't look like an evil mastermind. He looks like somebody who's shitting his pants. He's like, I'm fucking, like, you see it in his face. He's like, I'm all in on this now. I'm all in on this. And either I get the alien and everyone's dead, or I go to prison. And that is the great thing. I don't think he's an evil mastermind. I think he's just painted into a corner by Ripley. And he's like, well, I've got to do something. And he's so into his own self-survival that he'll do anything to kind of get away with it.
But again, his plans for it, they're dark. I mean, if they come about...
Oh, yeah, well, they become dark. Yeah.
Oh, my God, it is just, like, I'm going to jettison you into space.
But that's the point, though. It was never his plan originally. That was never his plan.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it was his plan, but what I'm saying...
Yeah, but that's what I thought.
It's just, it's dark. It's just...
Yeah. But I like I said, a plan is almost like he's just kind of like, he's in this position now, and he's like, well, I've got to do this. It's like, it's basically that classic, she's put him in that position, it's either them or me. And he's always going to pick himself because he's a fucking sleazebag. But yeah, he's up there amongst the best sleazebags. But as I said, I think the reason he works is because he's not pure evil. I know, like you say, his plan's pure evil in the end, but I think he's just like, he doesn't know what to do. He panics and he's just like, well, I've got to do this now.
He's one of those depictions of corporations, of a corporate stooge. Everything he's trying to do is just, what did they say? It was not for the numbers, for the bonus or something like that. They said that's why he's trying to do it, just for his portfolio.
Oh, it's percentage or whatever.
Percentage,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Obviously, it doesn't have a great view on corporate like that. That an early scene in the film when Ripley still has a 1979 haircut, just after she's been brought out of cryo, and they're in the boardroom with all the suits.
Yeah.
And there's like that one suit in particular, the woman with the haircut. It's like, oh, an alien not seen, not recorded on 300 known words. These are your words. An alien with concentrated acid for blood. And you just, I fucking hate you. Why don't you listen to Ripley? Why won't anyone listen to Ripley? Clearly the smartest woman in the world. Oh, in the room, sorry. In the world. I'm getting a bit carried away. But speaking of...
Oh, go on.
Sorry. I was just saying, speaking of Ripley, I mean, we might as well jump into... I mean, she is one of the most iconic...
Sorry, before we get into Ripley, because that's going to be a long conversation, I wanted to go back to the bad call.
Okay, yeah.
Gorman made, asking for all their weapons, not their weapons, their clips and stuff. Yeah. And then you got Vasquez and Drake with these Steadicam holding on blaster things. Whatever, I don't know what they
Nailed it.
And they pull out...
You mean the smart guns, yeah?
Sorry?
You mean the smart guns?
Yeah, the things they got, yeah.
Yeah.
It takes me a minute.
The Steadicam shooter things, yeah.
Because the rigs were actually from a Steadicam.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's where it was going with that. But they pull out the starter ignition thing to make them work, to give to Frost to put in his bag. Mm-hmm. Why would Vasquez have two more?
Well, they're just
hidden in her bra.
I guess she's just well prepared. I mean, the thing is, even what's her name?
You'd have one more. I'd assume you'd have one spare. Why would you have two down there?
Yeah, because she's two. I mean, she's got two boobs, I suppose. Why not? But it's like she's not just thinking about herself. She's like, this could happen, and she's thinking her best bum chump. Like, even out of everyone else, like amongst the Marines, those two have a connection immediately, don't they?
Well, it's not even immediate. It's actually in the script. In the story treatment that they grew up together in the slums of wherever they lived. So, and they both joined the Marine Corps together. So they've grown up. So that's what they're trying to say. Those two, and
they're the only two carrying those guns.
You see it more in Drake than you do in Vasquez. Like the way Drake looks at her constantly. That's love. Like it's a bit creepy as well. Like when they on the ship when they clasp each other's hands. He just like, Vasquez, you're bad, man. Just the way it's really creepy the way he stares at her as he's saying it.
I always quite like their relationship, and you can convey you could have turned that into a few pages of dialogue or something like that. But the fact that you buy into their relationship within moments of them waking up, like they come out of cryo, they immediately start doing pull-ups together. Vasquez has that great line where Hudson's like, "Hey, Vasquez, anyone ever mistook you for a man?" She's like, "No, have you? Have you ever been mistaken for a man?" And he comes over, like you said, does the hand things like, "Oh, you two there," and stuff. And it's just like immediately you're like, "Oh yeah, these two are close as fuck." Like even amongst everyone else, amongst all the Marines,
I still don't think, no matter how close you are, I still don't think you're gonna want two starter clips hidden in your bra.
I bought into it. I'm like,
no.
I don't think it's a coincidence that they're the only two with smart guns.
Yeah, so it's over preparation. He should bring his own starter motor thing.
Yeah, but you can see the way he looks at Vasquez. Like I think he's like. The reason he loves Vasquez so much is because she's the smart one. She's the one thinking ahead. It's like when she pulls out the clips, he's like, Vasquez, he gives that look like, I knew you would have both of them.
Yeah, but why
you're such a badass. I still don't
understand. Like this entire film, the thing that I can't get my head around is
it's bizarre. Like I said, I totally buy into it. And the thing is, we give Lieutenant Gorman a bad time about that, where it's a bad call asking everyone to get the clips, but it's not his call. Like it's actually Ripley who brings it up. She's the one who says, like, the whole thing's but obviously Burke.
It's more the fact that he could have taken 10 more seconds to explain why. He's just saying, just confiscate the clips, not saying, look, a stray bullet could nuke us all. If he would have explained that over the comms before they lost comms, maybe she wouldn't have pulled out the boob clips. Do you know what I mean?
I think stop. Like in the situation, I think, well, we're fighting. We're not going to, especially once things get out of hand. But I think the main thing is, and it's made clear in the film, is it's like he's just doing the usual thing. It's like, oh, well, I don't need to tell them why because I'm in charge, and he's constantly trying to convey that sense of leadership because, like it's made clear throughout the film, he doesn't have the experience, so he's trying to stay in charge. He's trying to kind of create that sense of I'm the boss kind of thing. So it's like, well, I don't need to tell them why; they just need to do it, and that's it. It's when things go south and he's sitting there and again, lip sweat through them, like so much lip sweat at that point. He's like, he clearly doesn't know what to do. And Ripley is there. It's like, they're cut off, do something. And that bit is very important because that's the bit where Ripley goes from an observer, or I can't remember the term Burke uses exactly when he's like, oh, you're coming down, I don't know, what do you say, an observer? But she becomes like a leader.
Yeah,
and it's the way that they establish Ripley as a leader in this. It's just incremental from that point on, where she suddenly, okay, Gorman's out of his depth, so suddenly it's like Ripley's running the show there. And then when Hudson breaks down, and she gives Hudson a dressing down, it's like, I've had enough of your shit, Hudson. It's like, you need to do this. And the stuff with Hicks, and obviously Hicks is completely in love with her. And
that's it's the battlefield romance at that point, isn't it? But it's the way Hicks looks at Ripley, like that what you could class like the action love scene where they're both swooning each other over this gun, this pulse rifle, as he's teaching her how to do it, and he's like, "No, you started this. You teach me everything." And it's just the look he gives, and he's like, "Yes, ma'am." Like it's.
It starts off earlier in the film, like the way it's with he and Apone, and she puts on the loader suit for the first time.
Yeah.
And she goes over, she picks up things like, where you want it? It's like, deck 3, please. And it's just like, God, oh man, she's fucking
Apone
awesome.
is making a meal out of that cigar. Like, he is chewing that thing.
Chewing the fuck out of that. I'm not going to question Apone. I mean, he puts that cigar in his mouth within, a second of coming out of cryo. He loves smoking, man. Yeah. He fucking loves smoking. But yeah, like, they have such a great romance. Like, obviously, the core relationship in this film is Newt and Ripley. And we'll get to that in a bit.
The mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah, which totally could have derailed this film, but works beautifully. But the romance, which is the kind of secondary relationship, it's such a quietly feminist moment because you've got all these guys, these military guys, and as I was saying, this kind of establishment as Ripley of not just somebody who fits in amongst these guys, but as the leader of the group. And when she's like, I say we take off nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. And then it goes to Hicks, and they're like, well, Hicks is in charge. And instead of saying something else, he literally quotes her.
Yeah.
And you're just like, it's such like it is a legitimately feminist moment where like this male ring is just like, listen, dude, don't listen to me. Listen to her because she's fucking in charge now. There's no choice about it.
The asshole moment from Burke just before that as well. Look, he's not equipped to make this call. He's just a grunt.
Yeah. No offense.
No offense, but you are. Again, I'm thinking, I think we should go nuke this site from orbit just to be sure. And it's the side eye he gives her. When he says it, and it's just like, no, I got you back. Like, you have proven that you are here just to, like, because they all thought at the beginning that she was going to be, as she called herself, a fifth wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But now she has proven from start to finish that she is there to help. Like, she didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but then she her kind of leadership qualities just kind of shine through. And in that moment, those moments of panic, it's just and nobody knows what's going on. You can see like the way Hudson reacts. Like, he just falls to pieces immediately. He becomes a bitch real quick. Like, he's great, don't be wrong, but he becomes a bitch real quick. And the thing is, I think that line where Burke says, you're just a grunt, and Hicks says, like, and he's like, no offense, and then take it. I think he really takes no offense because one, he's proud of his position.
Yeah.
And two, I think he knows that he is a grunt. And that's why he does essentially defer power to Ripley. And everyone just keeps happening a bit at a time. Everyone just keeps deferring more and more power to Ripley to the point where, reluctantly or not, and it's just in her nature, by the end, she is in charge of the operation.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it helps that Hicks is clearly in love with her. I mean, that one scene, like you say, with the gun, like some of the lines, he's like, when he gets the gun, feel the weight. And it's like, if it comes to that, I'll do us both. I'm like, oh, you filthy son of a bitch, Hicks. But it all leads up. And again, obviously, part of this is linked to the relationship with Newt, to that scene in the lift where, and obviously, we'll kind of go through, we assume everyone's seen this film a million times, but the bit when she goes to rescue Newt, she goes into the lift and she looks quite sheepish. And all of a sudden, she's got a flamethrower, she's got a pulse rifle. And in that lift, she turns from like, yeah, she's in charge, but all of a sudden she turns into an action hero. In the journey from the top floor to the bottom. She puts her hair back.
The moment she takes her jacket off and she's got the action hero white vest on.
Yeah. It's like a Superman scene. And all of a sudden she does like the gearing up scene, like an 80s action film, where she's doing all the things. You know, she's got the Reebok pumps on, those fucking cool ass trainers. And then the door opens at the end, and it's like a different woman comes out, and you're just like, man, she fucking sells the shit out of this.
That scene is from the lift going down, when Bishop says we got 15 minutes.
Isn't it 16 minutes? I keep reading 15 minutes. I'm sure he says ETA 16 minutes.
Well, 15 or 6, I can't really
remember. Oh, whatever it is. I could be mixing it up.
You'll forgive me for not remembering the time.
And you'll forgive me if I'm making things up. So we're talking about a minute here.
It is actually 15 or 60 minutes of the film as well. The rest of
it is in real time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's real time. And it's there's another one like that as well that I've got in facts about the real time. I think the drop, when they say we're dropping in 10 seconds, that whole scene is 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But that's done really well as well. That is actually 15 minutes. But when she's gearing up, I always thought, like when she puts the flamethrower next to the gun, it's all silly. Man, that thing is loose.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah.
You put the flamethrower next to the pulse rifle, and you've got a little bit of gaffer tape on there. Oh my god!
The good thing is
that could come apart any minute.
All you need to be able to do is aim the pulse rifle.
Yeah.
The great thing with a flamethrower is that you can be pretty lax with your aiming, as long as you're vaguely pointing it in the right direction. If it's like just vaguely north or south or whatever, you're gonna hit something. Like, that's the great thing about a flamethrower. Yeah. So I think I'm going to give her the benefit and say, all right, I'm aiming the pulse rifle, and as long as the flame is going in vaguely the same direction, I'm going to be gold. But from that moment, I mean, it all kind of starts, obviously, as I said, this turns into an action movie an hour in with the hive scene.
Yeah.
But it's really when the aliens attack their base of operations, as they call it. That's when this film, it stops being any pretenses of being a horror film. Well, it's still kind of horror, but a kind of any similarities to Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, are essentially abandoned. And for those last, I think it's 30 minutes, this is, I think, the greatest action movie finale of all time, because it doesn't stop. From the moment the aliens attack the room, they come down through the roof. There's the chase through the ducts.
Yeah.
Then, obviously, they lose Newt. She has to go and save Newt from the Queen and stuff. That whole action sequence, and you think, oh, everything's great. And it has what would by any other movie be the final shot where the ship goes away. It's even got the music and stuff. And I think it's got the greatest switcheroo in movie history, when all of a sudden the Queen alien is back, and it has this whole other extra scene. But that whole sequence leading up to the famous "Get away from her, you bitch" line, it's just non-stop, and it's absolutely pitch perfect, and arguably James Cameron at his best.
It's done really well, because it builds up Hicks to be the action hero, and then you go into this film, it's going to end with Ripley, but it kind of just builds Hicks up a little bit, but then it takes Hicks out of action pretty quick, and then he becomes the damsel kind of.
Yeah, he does.
And yeah, she rescues him, and he's then put into not stasis. He's given medication to knock him out to make him feel better. And then when they're on the ship, and then he's useless when the Queen's on the ship as well. And it's all down to Ripley. Ripley gets in the power loader. As you said, get away from her, you bitch. It's done so well to just show this positive, strong woman who's there just to rescue now her newfound daughter.
Well, that's one of the great things about her character, is that she is one of the great screen icons, one of the great action scene icons. I think she's literally up there with your kind of Han Solos, Indiana Jones personally. And the fact that she is so tough, she's so believable as being this leader of men, but she never loses her femininity. She never, Vasquez is the kind of your tough woman kind of thing. Whereas Ripley always feels completely feminine, but you never, you totally buy her as being this complete leader, this totally capable character, and the equal of, or the better of pretty much anyone on screen. And obviously part of that's the writing, but over so many films, you have to think the fact that you keep buying into it. It's so much of it is Sigourney Weaver's performance.
Yeah.
But and again, the importance of performance and of course the writing of James Cameron is that core relationship with Newt. Because if Newt isn't good, and let's be honest, child actors I've seen them derail films in their entirety. She's fantastic. That
one and only credit, by the way.
Yeah, she never acted again after this, which is insane. But that relationship, and it's similar to James Cameron in T2. You know, you suddenly put the Terminator and you spend the whole film with him with a kid, with John Connor. And it's like, in a less skilled hand, that could be a fucking horror show. That could be a recipe for disaster. But in this film, it absolutely works. And it's one of the few reasons where, like, you know, we've mentioned the special edition before, and I like all the extra scenes. I would argue that they were left out for a reason, for pacing purposes. And I would, as much as I like a lot of the scenes in the special edition, I would always choose to watch the theatrical cut. But the one scene which I think makes most sense is actually the scene where, she's given a picture of her daughter.
Yeah.
And obviously she's been in cryosuit for, I think it's 56 years. And the picture, funny enough, is of Sigourney Weaver's mother.
Yeah.
But she's told there essentially, it's like, oh, your daughter died like however many years ago, and of course that adds like additional weight to this kind of like surrogate relationship.
Now you realise that Burke is that much of a prick. Is her daughter dead?
I think so. No, I don't think it is. Like I said, I buy into the fact that Burke is a sleaze and he does have sneaky plans, but remember, he's not planning to kill everyone at the start. He just wants to get the aliens
but you
back.
don't know. Again, you don't know he's not planning. Like,
I don't think he is. I really believe, watching this film again, that he is reactionary. I
kind of believe it was his purview to bring back, if one of these alien species exists, like she said, you bring it back.
Yeah, but you're all ifs and buts. He's still going on her report. He doesn't really know what he's looking at. He doesn't know what to expect. You've got to think,
everything we know about Weyland-Yutani isn't good. Like the way they are in the boardroom and everything like that. So they've now lost contact with the same colony that she said there's an alien on this. So
yeah.
It's almost glaringly obvious to me that the reason why he's going up there is because he has been commanded or ordered to bring back one of these species. But he has to convince the rest of these Marines that it's spur of the moment. Oh, we could do this. Do you know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure it's his the whole reason he's there is to bring it back. There's no other reason for Burke to be going other than to report back.
See, I disagree with you. I didn't read it that way. I'm sure like Weyland-Yutani and stuff, but I think this is more personal. And I think it's kind of brought up in a bunch of lines where, he's like, oh, I thought you'd be smarter than this. I think he's just opportunistic. I think he may have been sent by Weyland-Yutani, but I think he's looked at it and he's thought, listen, if I can get one of these aliens back, man, I'm going to be rich. Like, the way he talks about it, it doesn't sound like he's been sent by an evil overlord. The way he talks to Ripley, and again, in that pivotal scene where he's like, we'll be set for life. He's like, if we can get this alien back, it's like how much it's worth to weapons and, science division, whatever.
But that's trying to convince people that don't know his orders. And
again, you can read it either way, but I
said, it's subjective. It is.
Yeah, I just don't think he's he's a bad and he's a wrongling for sure. I just think he's opportunistic. He wants to get one of the aliens back, so he lies a lot because he's saying, "Oh no, we're going down to exterminate," but he knows he's going down and he wants to bring one of these aliens back for sure. But I don't think at any point he's planning on fucking murdering everyone or any of that nonsense.
I'm not saying he's planning on murdering everyone at the start. But what I'm saying is it was his orders to go and get an alien. And that's why he's convinced Ripley to go back. Yeah. Ripley's already had dealings with these ones. I'm saying that Weyland-Yutani have ordered him, commanded him, whatever you want to say. If one of these things exists, we want it back to study.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Yeah. But as I say,
but that's when things go off the rails. I'm not saying he's right. He sat down before they've gone, right, how do I kill this one? How do I kill this one?
Yeah.
Everything has happened that he's had to work on the fly. But I'm not saying
he's just trying to. He's just like you say, he's going in, whether it be ordered by Weyland-Yutani or whether it's his own volition. He's going down. He's like, listen, whatever happens, I'm bringing an alien back.
Yeah,
and he wants to do it with as little fuss as possible.
And
he tells everyone the plan. Because Ripley says to him, it's like, oh, we've got to destroy all this. And Whaley's like, he said to Bishop, he's like, no, we're keeping these. We're sending him back. And he's hoping it'll be as easy as that. Yeah. And he's just like, oh, no. Like, I'm actually in charge. And it's only when, as I said, Ripley comes back and gives him the speech, like, oh, I know what you did with LB-426. And he's like, uh-oh, I'm going to have to do something a little bit more extreme. But yeah, we're turning this into the Burke podcast somehow.
It's spur of the moment and opportunistic and...
Yeah.
But the thing is that, like, we've gone on about Burke quite a lot. It's because
we have.
But Burke is the catalyst. Burke is one of the main reasons for, all right, not the whole aliens happening, but he's the catalyst for Ripley actually becoming like, do you know what, I'm going to keep moving forward. Especially when he releases the alien in the he releases the face hugger in the room with him sleeping. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At that point, then she was like, "Well, yeah, very dark." But she's like, "No, everything's done at this point. You know, you've done that, Burke. You're done. I'm going to make sure you get put on charges." You know, and then
well, like I said, I think, you know, obviously at that point you're talking like he's gone all in on it. I mean, he was fucked before then because, you know, she's already said it's like, you know, everyone's going to know what you did, and he knows he's going to go to prison. And that is his bet. His bet is on that room. It's like, can I get them impregnated? Can I get them, you know, in crime? And he's like, then, you know, everyone goes back. Nobody's any the wiser. I kill everyone. I get away with it. I get the alien. Everything's good. He knows if that goes wrong, which it does, they could end up killing him. And that's why there's that, like, as I mentioned earlier, that great scene with the camera when they're kind of waving and he can see it. And he turns the camera off and they cut to his face and you could just see, he's like, oh my God, I hope this fucking works. They have to die because if they don't die, I'm probably fucking dead. But he's just one of like a number of absolute stand-up performances in this film.
Yeah. Moving on to another great performance. One of all the films, of all the uncomfortableness in this film, nothing more uncomfortable for me than having to think about crawling 40 minutes through the smallest tube in the world.
Oh, that bit freaks me out. Of all the stuff you've seen in this film, you think of like aliens and acid for blood, those fucking horrible aliens. There's something about the idea of crawling through that tube, and when you see him in it, and it's so tight, you're like, oh my God, man, I'm not sure if I can do that.
But his performance as Bishop is great. Lance Henriksen does amazing.
He's amazing.
When they put him into the pipe and he's explaining everything that's going on and he puts the machines in, and then Vasquez hands him a gun. He grabs the gun off Vasquez, and in the same motion as he brings the gun to himself, he puts it back up and gives it to Ripley.
Yeah.
Just that little nuance of
I don't
want the weapon. Like, because I don't want to harm anything or anybody.
Well, it's a great performance because they play up early doors on the idea that he might, because obviously this is coming off the back of Alien and Ash, who obviously the synthetic that goes insane and tries to kill Ripley. And there are little scenes earlier in the film which suggest maybe he's not right. There's obviously the scene with the great the knife scene, and they say, "Oh, I thought you never miss." And you know, this idea that it's, well, he's not perfect because he did nick his own hand and he's bleeding.
But that same scene actually puts you into perspective as well of not harming anyone, because when they put Bill Paxton's hand down, Hudson's hand, he puts his hand on top. And that's more of, if I'm going to stab somebody, I'm going to stab myself. So that's, again, not a... So it's perspective that he may turn, but it also adds to the fact that it's one of those things where I can't harm a human being.
Oh, 100%. As I said, I think that is like, obviously his prerogative is like, I can't harm a human being. But they just kind of sow those little seeds of doubt, because Ash was the same, but it's just like, oh, but maybe he's not quite right. And it's the scene in particular when he's dissecting the face hugger. And I think it's Spunkmeyer comes in. He's like, Bishop. And he's like, and he just has that little delay kind of thing. And it's just that weird little scene. And he's like a little bit too obsessed with the face hugger.
Lance Henriksen wanted to make that scene a little bit more
weird.
Yeah. You know this one as well, do you?
No. I just
so while he's looking down the microscope, and then Spunkmeyer comes in and says, Bishop. And as he looks at him, and he stares, and it looks like he's staring into Spunkmeyer's soul before he says anything for a minute.
Yeah, it's the important bit is the delay, isn't it?
But Lance Henriksen actually came in onto set with double pupilled contact lenses.
Yeah.
And like because he wanted to make it look a bit more creepy.
Yeah.
And plant the seed that Bishop may actually turn like the android did before. But James Cameron said, oh, "You're doing well being creepy alone, mate. You don't need something that makes you look more really creepy. Evil." Yeah.
Well, that is the thing, because of what came before and the fact that, you know, his exterior he's so pleasant, he's so eager to help. All you need, and again, because it was established in the previous film, is all you need is that little delay. And that's all it is. It's like, he asks him a question and he just looks at him, and it's just like, if you're a synthetic, it's like, why do you have that weird delay? Like, he's just like, what should I say here? It just puts you on edge. But of course, it's another great switcheroo, because Bishop ends up being like the best synthetic ever, and he's totally there to save the day, or at least trying to.
Well, he said, I'm sorry I left you, but the platform was being unstable, so I had to drive around, fly around, hoping I could pick you up. Yeah,
because even right to the end, like Sigourney Weaver, when she comes out, it's like, Bishop, God damn you! Yeah. And but you know, even when he gets like ripped in two at the end, which is an amazing shot when the Queen Alien comes out, tears him in two. And you just think, well, he's out of the game now. But even then, he saves Newt. And, like, you know, he kind of grabs onto her.
Yeah, he's holding on. He won't let her go, yeah.
But as I said, like, James Cameron, I think somehow, even with all his success, is still somewhat underrated. I think he is one of the, like, maybe top three. If we're talking blockbuster movie directors, I think he's one of, like, the top three of all time. I think he's in that same category as Spielberg. I really do. Really? He doesn't obviously have the same kind of input. I mean, I love all his films. We're talking Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, True Lies, whatever you say about Titanic, it might not be your kind of film. It's a masterpiece of what he was trying in terms of popular cinema. And the same with Avatar. People talk shit about Avatar. There is a reason he made that film the way, like, the only way that film is the biggest film of all time, because you got to remember, you know, Avengers. I mean, it's overtaken Avengers. I think it's really released in China. This is there's no franchise link to this. This is a movie about blue cats, and people forget. Like with Avatar, the first trailer, it wasn't a big action trailer. It was a romantic trailer, and all the nerds lost their fucking mind. But he was like, "It's fine. The nerds are going to go and see it regardless. I've got to win over every. If this film is going to make $2 billion." I don't need to convince the nerds. I need to convince the mums, the people who go to the cinema maybe twice a year. And it's like the fact that people keep doubting him. It's like they doubted him for the Titanic, and then he goes and makes the biggest film of all time. Yeah, and I remember the build-up to Avatar. I'm like, I was like, didn't you see Titanic? And of course, it turns into an even bigger fucking film.
It's gotta be me then, because they are some of the biggest films. You're right, but from after True Lies, which True Lies is great. I love True Lies. But like Titanic, Avatar, the shit.
Oh, I totally disagree.
I can't stand them. They are awful.
I think, and again, it might not be your kind of film for sure, but in terms of making a populist Hollywood film, like Titanic is, I don't think many, and again, it might not be your cup of tea, but I'm not sure if there's another director in the world who can make Titanic. And I certainly don't think there's another director with the balls and the talent to pull off Avatar. That film should have been a fucking train wreck. We're talking giant 8-foot tall blue cats. Let's not forget that. And everyone's like, what the fuck is this film? And then it comes out. And I think people forget with Avatar, because of course you watch it on TV years later, and you're like, oh, this is fucking Fern Gully with a bit of aliens thrown in. And yeah, maybe it is. But I think people forget what that was like, watching it in 3D for the first time. And I got to be honest, I remember, like, I went to the cinema and there was that first sequence, that first 3D sequence, and it was my first introduction to genuine 3D cinema. And it was a wow moment. Like, I was like, holy shit. And like the stuff with Pandora, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, this guy's always been on the cutting edge. And Aliens is just like that. This is, again, we've talked about it on previous podcasts. The reason a lot of these films hold up is because they were at the peak of practical effects. And I honestly believe this movie is the legitimate peak of practical effects in cinema before CG took over. Because obviously he did The Abyss in 1989. Yeah. And that was a combination of the two. That was, you know, he used CG in that. Everyone thinks T2, but T2 was 91, I think. So he was already using computer-generated effects in 1989 to great effect, to sparingly great effect with The Abyss, another fantastic film we could easily do on this podcast. The 86, it's all matte paintings, it's all physical effects, And I legitimately believe it's the peak of the art form. And he, like, especially when you go back and watch it with a very critical eye, for a podcast, for instance, is how many tricks he uses with the budget and the scope he has, with miniatures, with matte paintings, with reverse shots, with mirrors. Like that scene with the cryo chambers, there's only 4. They had to use mirrors, different camera angles to look like there was 12. It's all little tricks out of the film. When they're going down the ducts, whatever you want to call them, and obviously they're running away from the alien. They're all. I reckon there's about 12 foot of duct in that shot, but he sells it, and you think they're running for days.
There's a good shot in the special edition where the APC is traveling. You see the APC from outside; it's traveling to the colony, and that's all miniatures. Somebody's controlling the miniature APC as it's moving. There's a great shot of one of the stagehands, model directors, whoever. You can see him. You can see the head and shoulders of one of the stagehands above the miniature in the background, amazing. In the special edition. So the fact that they didn't see that is absolutely great. I want to. Sorry, just while we're on that subject, is one of the things the special effects team was particularly proud of was that when they showed early cuts to Fox, I suppose it was, and they were said, "Listen, I thought you were spending money on special effects. You've clearly spent so much money on sets." Yeah. And what they were showing them weren't sets; they were miniatures. They were special effects, and they were like, "Oh, we've tricked the bigwigs," And obviously, you can see some of the joins, but for the most part, it holds up. One of the only bit that stands out for me, and it's a very quick shot. But when Ripley's dropping the alien queen into the airlock, there's a wide shot, and you can see it's a little doll of Ripley in a suit, and it's tricky with the human, of course. But that's the only bit that stands out. For the most part, this film still looks really good. For me, the one thing that I suppose is dated a bit is the scene of the dropship flying down. That to me that's it. It doesn't take you out of the film or anything, but that is definitely dated. But we already said it a couple of weeks ago when we said about Ghostbusters, with the devil dogs running.
Yeah,
it's only because at the time, special effects, matte paint, however you want to say they did it, it's ahead of its time. It looks great.
Yeah.
And like I said, for this film is still watchable. This film is still great. The practical effects, the special effects, the miniatures, everything is great. But it kind of just does feel dated, just that one thing with the dropship flying down.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think it almost gets away with it just because it's so well shot, and the fact that the dropship looks so amazing, and the actual,
it doesn't take you out of the film at all.
No. But as you say, the effects aren't quite there. But even that, they pull off a lot of tricks to kind of take your focus away from the fact that it doesn't look quite right. You can see the lines around the ship. Yeah. But yeah, there are one or two where it's creaking. But for a film from 1986, as I said, you can go back to a film from 2006, 2007, and a lot, even modern day blockbusters where the CG doesn't look quite right. Whereas this, because most of it's practical, there are one or two shots, as you say, where you can only go so practical. It's a fucking dropship falling out of a spaceship.
Yeah.
That you do get those little lines, but it holds up better than the majority of most modern blockbusters, which is unbelievable. Those shots in space still look fantastic. Like, I was worried that, because I think this is the first time I've seen it in HD, and because I bought the whole box set, because I was like, I'll watch this on Sky Movies. They had every Alien film except for Aliens, bizarrely. So I was like, balls this, I'm buying the full set on HD. And the last time I watched this film was actually the 17mm print. And that's because they brought it up to Edinburgh. They brought up Alien and Aliens ahead of the release of Prometheus. So I was able to watch both of them in their original format, original 17mm print. And of course, that it's a bit crackly, but it adds to the charm. Whereas this is the opposite end. This is everything cleaned up to the nth degree. And that can be great. But a lot of older films, especially ones with slightly shonky special effects, if you have something in Ultra HD, what it can really do is show the lines. It can bring your attention to the bits that don't quite work. In this, for the most part, I was like, it makes this film look even better, especially, as I said, the stuff in space, like the shots of the Sulaco over LV-426, they look amazing.
Well, even at the beginning, when you've got Ripley's life raft floating through.
Oh, that looks so good. That looks
fantastic.
Yeah, and we've talked about shots in films recently where the opening shot is a spaceship, like Predator. Yeah, that has that quick opening shot of a spaceship. It doesn't look great, And what was the other one with the spaceship? There was another one which had another one we did on the podcast where the opening shot was a spaceship. What the fuck was it? Where we were surprised because we're like, oh, it's just like Predator. Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, there was another one.
Yeah.
Needless to say, a lot of these 80s films, they have this opening shot of a spaceship, and you watch it back now, and it looks a bit dopey, like a little bit ropey, sorry. But that opening shot of her ship and the music, everything about it is so top drawer. Like Alien before this had that great intro sequence where the letters come in slowly and it has the sci-fi soundtrack. This one perfectly encapsulates the tone of this movie, where it has something similar and it's building up with the sci-fi audio, but then behind it is that kind of very militaristic score, like built into it. Yeah. And just that kind of like straight from the off, 10 years, like, yeah, this is Alien, but this is going to be different. And yeah, like right from the off.
The Thing, by the way, sorry, The Thing.
The Thing, thank you very much. That was the other one. Again, it didn't look fantastic in that. But James Cameron might be the greatest, regardless of what you think of him as a director. Obviously, we have different opinions of him. I rate him very highly. But as a technical director, I don't think anyone could doubt that he is top of class.
Special effects, again, technical, as you say, I think great. Even as a director, I think good. He is a good director.
Well, as director, I think good.
I think good.
Rob's been drinking, everybody. Oh my
God. Because he's only got like 6 big films, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And for what I would say, then like 80% of his, don't quote me on the maths, but 80% of his films, for me, are really good. And they're as we said, Abyss, Aliens, Terminator 2, Terminator 1, and True Lies as well. Mm-hmm. Great films. Sorry, he's done 7. When you get then to the last 2 films he's done, which is Titanic and Avatar, story-wise, shit. I mean, all right, not really Titanic. I mean, we know how Titanic ends anyway. I mean,
yeah.
Watch the film. But Avatar, mainly, story-wise, it is shit. It is terrible. It looks great.
I disagree, but yeah, I know.
Oh, come on. They go to another planet to get unobtainium.
No, I know. But I think he knows, again, I think when he's going into this, he's like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to make the biggest
James Cameron apologist, isn't he?
I'm going to make the biggest film of all time. And I think he knows that he needs to make a relatable, and like he's like introducing a totally new world. He's introducing, again, 3D at a time when nobody's used to it. He's introducing 8-foot-tall cat. He's like, listen, I need to make the story approachable and understandable. And yet maybe he goes a bit too far with that. But that movie, again, the story is fine. It's been told a bunch of times. It's Dances with Wolves. It's Ferngully, all this stuff. That film was an experience film, and he was selling the world. And it's something he does better than anyone else. And no, like I said, I know Avatar has his critics, and I'm not criticizing your critique of the film because I totally get it.
My experience with that film was boredom. My experience.
I thought it was great.
I couldn't do it.
I saw that film twice in the cinema because I was like, I've never seen anything like it. And I think that film has its faults. And as you say, the storytelling is a little bit one note. We've been here before. But as an experience at the cinema, I still think there's nothing like it. But it does highlight his strengths. And again, he's almost like a superior George Lucas. Like George Lucas, he's not always the greatest storyteller, but what he is an amazing world builder. And that is what, above all else, James Cameron is.
I totally agree with you on that. James Cameron's world building, James Cameron's special effects, the way he shot
his design, aesthetic.
Because he got the job of Aliens because he showed them a model of, I think it was one of the ships, the Sulaco or the drop ship.
Yeah.
And that's how he got, because it's absolutely perfect. It looks fantastic. He sells the vision. And I mean, it hasn't been top since. I mean, whenever you see us, like, again, whether it be video games or movies, if anyone's trying to do sci-fi action, everyone's trying to recreate Aliens. Everyone's trying to recapture that aesthetic, that tone. And nobody's done it better since. Nobody's come close. And I tell you one thing, watching this film again, you talk about those militaristic moments, and after Ripley ostensibly turns into an action hero at the end, that scene in the throne room with the Queen, which is an amazing shot. Like, it's been built up. It's mother and mother. Like, there's no talking, there's no dialogue. It's just those having this understanding. It's like she has her eggs, and she has what is ostensibly at this point her adopted child, and they're like, listen, I won't fuck with you, you don't fuck with me, and I'm just going to back out, and we're just all going to go our separate ways.
And then there's that bit where the egg opens, and the acting that Sigourney Weaver with that little tilt of the head, like, you had to fuck with me, didn't you? And then she just goes fucking off. And I was like, dude, this scene reminds me of Predator. The scene when they just shoot the shit out of the trees. I'm like, you cut to her face, she's so angry, and she's just shooting at she's like, every clip, every gas canister, every rocket, it's all going in this fucking room right now. And it's so, like that scene in Predator, it's so cathartic.
Yeah.
When she starts burning the eggs, then she starts shooting the eggs, then she starts shooting rockets into the Queen. And this is all, it's easy to forget as well, the actual introduction of the Queen. Like, we're all used to it now. But when you're watching this film, of course, you're like, oh, they're going to reintroduce the aliens. This is before, like, as I said, you don't see the aliens again until an hour into this film. And even before then, there's just this throwaway scene where she's talking to Bishop. She's like, oh, well, there's, all these colonists, 100 eggs for 100 colonists. And she's like, well, who's laying these eggs? And you're sitting there watching the film, like, whoa, who is laying these eggs? Where the fuck these eggs come from? And because it all goes off the rails then for the next hour, you forget about it. And then all of a sudden you have that great shot of that gross tube thing. Well, like putting the egg on the floor, and you're like, oh my, what the fuck is this going to be?
That brings me on to a question that we've actually had to raise. Mm-hmm. I'll quote, Lee Harris actually asked me this question. And it links more towards Alien 3, because Alien 3 starts off, there's an egg on the Sulaco. And that's how Alien 3 happens. How is she laying the eggs? Like, because is the tube what's gestating them? Because how does an alien? How does an egg end up on the Sulaco when you see the Queen laying the eggs via the tube? Mm-hmm. It's like, do you have any
sense?
No.
Wait, so I thought just a face hugger got on rather than an egg.
No, it's an egg. You see, there's an egg.
Oh, I can't remember. Well, that is the problem with Alien 3, is that it doesn't make any sense, and it's largely shit. And and again, we'll get to this in the legacy section, is that they took everything brilliant about aliens and they ruined it in the opening shot by killing off Newton Hicks. Like that was it. Like, the heart and soul of this movie, the thing that you're striving for, it's completely undermined within the opening moments of that miserable movie, Alien 3, which does have some redeeming factors. But
do you believe then that the Queen needs that gestation tube to lay an egg?
She absolutely does. She absolutely. It doesn't make any sense.
But I was talking to a mutual friend of ours last night and we were about it, and he doesn't think that they need the tube. Like,
no, you absolutely need the tube.
I think they need the tube. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Because like, where's she hiding that egg? The body's not big enough.
Unless there was just one that she managed to pick up, put under her arm.
There's even the gross bit, like when Ripley, to go back to the bit when Ripley's shooting the grenades, there's the bit and it makes a great gloopy sound. She shoots a grenade into the tube bit, and that bit of the tube is really fat and full of juices, or whatever you want to say. I think that's where the eggs gestate, whatever you want to call it, and then they're laid by the little tubey gross bit at the end. So it doesn't make any sense. I don't think the Queen carries the eggs and just poops them out. I think they need to travel through that, and that's how it happens. And that's why the tube thing. So it doesn't make any sense.
And that's why, it makes no sense for the egg to actually be on there for the start of Alien 3.
No, it doesn't.
But it was a good question to raise.
No, it does. Yeah. I never thought about it, and no, it doesn't make any sense. But as I said, I think a lot of people listening to this will know of the troubles of the production of Alien 3, all the different writers, all the different scripts. And I think they're just at some point, it's like, well, we've got to get this thing going. I don't think it all needs to make sense. They'd already fucked up the ending of Aliens by, as I said, killing off Newton Hicks, which is a terrible choice. Yeah. And then they just go and throw this egg on and make that. Let's be clear, it's a pretty miserable film, isn't it? It's not the most fun. And the thing is, and Aliens, I get it wanting to do something different, because Aliens is so different to Alien. It's like, it's weird because I watched them, as I mentioned, basically back-to-back in the cinema. And it was the first time I'd watched them back-to-back in years, where I watched Alien and went straight into Aliens. And after watching Alien, which is really dark, really gritty, space horror movie, it's like suddenly jump into Aliens, it almost feels a bit cheesy. Yeah. And at the end in particular, it really takes it up to the line. When you get that extra scene, obviously she escapes, it's all fantastic. Bishop comes back down. somehow the Queen alien gets onto, there's that one bit when the dropship's landing gear gets caught on the metal, and that's just that little hint. It's like, well, that's when the Queen alien somehow gets on the ship. Suspension of disbelief is kind of required there. But that whole sequence then, when it's like, oh no, you thought it was the end of the film, but there's going to be a big action scene, that bit of the film takes it right up to the line of cheesy. Like when Ripley comes out and the door opens and she's in the loader suit and get away from her, you bitch.
Yeah.
That shouldn't work. And she has then a very slow motion 10-minute fight scene with the Queen alien, which just about holds together.
That's foreshadowing as well, because they showed the loader, use the loader at the beginning and everything. Yeah. I mean, I think you're kind of expecting a fight with an alien.
I think you kind of are, but because of the way the film goes, it feels like a finale. She's had the big fight with the Queen in the throne room. You think the Queen's going to get it. There's the big dramatic lead off. As I said, the great bit is that music which plays, where it's like they're driving off into they're flying off into the distance. Everything's fine. End of movie. And I can imagine watching it for the first time, because it's hard to remember. Obviously, I was so young. Be like, yeah, that's the end of the film. It worked out.
Well, it does feel like the logical conclusion.
Yeah, it totally does. And then, of course, the loader comes out, and you're saying, like, oh, yeah, the loader from earlier, of course. But that bit is so... It forgets about the whole horror thing. This is like full-on action movie mayhem, and it shouldn't work. But again, because Sigourney Weaver's so good, because James Cameron is so good, you just fucking go with it, man. Yeah. You go with it. And by the time the film ends, you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like I said, for an hour, it's weird because the way he tricks you, like, it's so entertaining. The characters are so good. The first hour of this film is 100% world building. It's all saying, this is Alien as you remember it, but there's these twists. And he's reestablishing the universe while constantly building on top of it. Like even this cool little, when they're having breakfast around the table, or, they come out of cryosleep, and there's like having those conversations about having sex with other alien races. They're just throwing in these little nods to this much bigger...
Well, somebody wanted me to bring that up as well, the whole cool. The Arturians, wasn't it?
Yeah. Somebody's been fucking aliens, Star Trek style, Captain Kirk style. I think Frost was maybe fucking a dude or an alien girl, who knows?
Well, actually, again, our mutual friend Dave, he said he's actually read up on this. Of all the things,
brilliant.
Where he's read up.
Of course, there's going to be some literature on this.
And they're asexual, the Arturians.
Obviously.
So it doesn't matter.
Is this like official literature, or is he reading Aliens fan fiction?
he might have travelled to Pornhub. We don't know, but
yeah, the ongoing sexual adventures of Hicks and Frost.
Yeah, but apparently they are asexual, so it doesn't matter, man, because that's what Frost actually says, doesn't he? He says because they said the one you had, I'm sure, was a male. He said it doesn't matter when they're Arturian. The fact that are asexual beings is quite funny, and the bug hunting as well.
Mm-hmm.
And who called them xenomorphs? Because this is the name. Because they weren't called xenomorphs in the first one, were they? And nobody believed about these aliens. So
it's Gorman who says it.
Yeah. So how do they get the name xenomorph?
Well, xenomorph just means alien, doesn't it? It's like they even said, it's like, I think Frost says a xenomorph, and then Hicks is like a bug on. It's just like, listen, it's just another fucking, it's another big buggy. Like they just used to coming across like buggy fucking aliens and other planets, and because of obviously places like LB-426, when they're trying to, what's the term that they use when they're like giving it breathable air? There's a term for it. When you take a planet and you make it habitable for humans. They do that anyway. So that's going to drive me up the wall when I remember the word. You dumbass.
It's not
terraforming.
Terraforming.
Yeah. So they're obviously, I assume, like humans are terraforming these planets, and they're sending in the Marines, and it'll just be indigenous life. And I can assume what they're saying is we quite often run into these like bugs or aliens, kind of like Avatar, funny enough, very similar to Avatar, where they need to come in and clear them out, because that is ostensibly, it's just a smarter race. Yeah. They're like, listen, we want this unobtainium. We're going to come in and we're fucking taking it no matter what. And Alien is just like that, but they obviously haven't run into into Pandora yet, and the giant blue space cats. So yeah, the Marines are used to going to these planets. They're like, listen, it's just going to be a bunch of fucking bugs, deep Starship Troopers style. We'll go in, we'll shoot them up. We're the pros, no problem. But of course, they've run into the most, and let's be clear, to this day, the most unpleasant and scary alien on screen of all time. Like, the great thing they do in this film in particular is even when they win, I don't want to quote, danger of quoting the tagline for Aliens versus Predator, that fucking travesty of a movie. It's like, even when they kill the aliens, it's like, is it Drake?
Yeah.
Drake? Yeah. When he kills the alien, he gets killed by the acid. When they shoot the fucking alien in the door with the shotgun, it gets on Hicks's arm. When Vasquez shoots the alien, it's like it gets on her. It's like, even when we're fucking winning, we're getting fucked up. They just
go on, do it.
I don't think there's no, I'm not saying it. I'm not fucking saying it. I watched his research for this film. I was like, is Aliens versus Predator that bad? I watched 20 minutes of it. I was like, that's plenty. The answer is yes.
We better move on to facts soon.
But, yeah. We've been rattling on for ages. What the hell was I going to say then? I felt like I was going to say something really important. I'm going to blame you for that. All right, because otherwise...
Before we move on to facts, I just wanted to... Well, one for you more than anything else, because we mention it quite a lot. The film Near Dark.
Mm-hmm.
That's got a slight Aliens reunion, which was... Because Near Dark was 1987.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we know Bill Paxton was in it and Lance Henriksen. But I always forget that Vasquez is in it as Lance Henriksen's wife, Diamondback.
Yeah, and she's in T2.
Yeah.
The wife, she pops up.
The foster mother of John Connor, yeah.
Yeah. No, like you said, it's one of those films, could really rattle on about this film all day. I mean, the one thing, before we get to facts, before we move on to our usual subjects, I have to ask, because it is the most important question, the Godfather 1 versus Godfather 2 question. Alien or Aliens? Which one is your film?
Aliens.
Yeah, mine too.
Because I think we said it last week, and I don't know, hangover. And I think I might have said it at the beginning of this one. Aliens was my first foray into this universe.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think that literally might be the only reason that I prefer this to Alien, because when I went back and watched them in the cinema in particular, it was seeing it on the big screen that really sold me on just how good Alien is, and just how amazingly that film holds up on. Again, you talk about special effects. A lot of the exterior shots, like that's 1979. It still looks fantastic. Yeah. It's an amazing film, and we are talking. God, what you prefer, the 9.5 or the 10? Like these films are both masterpieces. But I think the same reason as you, because I saw Aliens first, and let's be clear, because of the age I was, like this film is much more pro 12-year-old boy than fucking Alien is a gritty, scary horror film. And of course, I still loved it. But this film with the guns, with the fucking, the Marines, everything, it was just ticking every single box.
Tell me you didn't grow up just wanting a pulse rifle.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like,
still to this day, I'm 38 years of age. I still want a pulse rifle.
That's why it keeps popping up. Let's be clear. Like Master Chief's assault rifle in Halo is as close to a fucking pulse rifle as you can get. Like the design, everything about it. Everybody just wants to create a pulse rifle. But anyway, we'll get on to facts, I think, now, because otherwise we will keep rattle on forever. What a great fucking film. What a great movie.
Do you want to go?
What have you got? I'll let you. No, go for it, man.
Okay, I had to stop at some point of this film because
I had to stop.
We're going forever with the facts. So like this film, like most films, wasn't shot in sequence. But what I do like, for added realism, James Cameron filmed the scene where we first meet the Marines last, in order for you to feel like the camaraderie and everything, because they spent months filming now. So to film that scene last, you feel their camaraderie. So I thought that was quite good, and I thought that was quite clever to do that. Yeah,
it's kind of like in Terminator 3 when they shot the appearance of Arnie last, so that he could work out as much as possible, so he'd look as good as possible when he was nude. So not quite the same being on anything. Same kind of ballpark.
What else have I got? The knife trick scene was originally going to be done by Bishop alone. According to Lance Henriksen, he suggested James Cameron to have Hudson's hand put on top of his, to which Cameron agreed, as Henriksen felt the scene needed something extra. This change was discussed with almost everyone except Paxton. Henriksen also remembers a long night of drinking after shooting the scene, followed by a reshoot of the scene, as it looked too fake. When they sped the footage up, he accidentally caught Paxton's pinky with a knife on the reshoot.
Nice.
And there's a nice story as well, Lance Henriksen has said, about how he practiced with loads of knives, different knives, because he didn't know which knife James Cameron wanted him to use, and he nearly wasn't allowed in the country because it was filmed in London, in Pinewood Studios, Because he brought the knives with him on the plane.
Obviously. Yeah, as you see, I totally buy into the idea that Lance Henriksen's like a bit of a weirdo. 100%.
He remembers like the security at the airport just opening the suitcase and just seeing all these knives, just thinking, "What?" And
I mean, it was the 80s. I mean, you could get it. Yeah, like only the 80s would you think I can probably bring all these knives with me, and it probably was the kind of time where it's like unless somebody looks at it, you might have got away with it, but don't bring an abundance of knives into the country. Not smart.
Bill Paxton continuously apologized to Carrie Newt throughout filming. Every time Hudson had to swear in front of her, Carrie
18
later
times.
Carrie later admitted that she didn't mind, mainly because she really didn't know what any of the words meant.
Yeah, well, funny enough, fuck is uttered 25 times in this movie.
Yes,
and 18 of those are by Hudson. So, yeah.
Al Matthews, who plays Capone. No, not Capone. Apone. He's actually a Marine sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
He had totally believable. Yeah, the rank of sergeant in Vietnam. So that's the same as, and because I'll get to that as well. But R.L. Is it R.L. Ernie from Full Metal Jacket?
Yeah, he's the kind of
he's a drill instructor, yeah.
Benchmark, isn't he? Where they got him in to actually teach another, like somebody to act as a drill instructor, and he was so good that they famously kept him in the movie. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was thinking much the same thing here. But he's massively into the whole militaristic thing, but he does it with, he's not as like overt or as gross as say like Michael Bay is.
Yeah.
Because Michael Bay, there's very much that Go America thing. Like, it's a little bit G.I. Joe. Whereas this, it doesn't feel specific to the US. And it's the same with all his films. It's a love of militaristic equipment and wanting everything to feel lived in and recognizable but futuristic, but it doesn't have that gross Michael Bay edge to it. But, yeah.
So the alien nest set was kept intact after filming. It was later used as the Axis chemical set for Batman.
I didn't know that until recently. I was like, and when you say it, you can see the scene with the Joker when he shoots Eckhart. Think of the future. I'm like, oh yeah, it totally is.
So according to Lance Henriksen, during the production of Aliens, the film Full Metal Jacket was also being shot at a nearby location. Because of this, the crews of each movie would often gather together for parties. Both films feature U.S. Marines trapped in intense combat situations, and both casts feature a U.S. Marine Corps Vietnam War veteran, R. Lee Ernie, in Full Metal. In both films, these actors played sergeants who used the phrase "assholes and elbows." Coincidentally, both actors died.
Assholes and elbows. Hudson, come here.
Both of them died in 2018.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, both of them.
They're both awesome. Both awesome. I mean, obviously, the most famous is without question Full Metal Jacket, but two of the best on-screen drill instructors of all time, or kind of military leaders, whatever you want to call them.
This one's mad for the film, because the film is we've already said the film's fantastic. We've said it multiple times. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of animosity on the set. The British crew were openly hostile to James Cameron and his wife, Gail Ann Hurd. In their eyes, Cameron was a nobody who had not made a decent film yet, as they hadn't seen The Terminator. He set a screening for them to come and watch The Terminator, and none of them showed up.
I know, it's dark. And supposedly a lot of them were like fiercely loyal to Ridley Scott, who obviously is British as well. And they're like, oh, he did Alien. What business have you got making aliens? And, he had just made Terminator and that was it. And Terminator was a hit, but Terminator was a B movie. And I don't think artistically it was considered on the same level as maybe Alien was, which, was elevated, I think, by the 80s afterwards to the level of high art. So, still, they could have been a bit classier. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that, but I read the same thing, that they were just bellends and not giving it. Well, history is very much on James Cameron's side, put it that way.
Yeah. We've already said Hicks was originally played by James Remar, but Michael Bain replaced him after a few days after principal photography began. The often given reason for Remar being removed was due to artistic differences between Remar and director James Cameron. But in episode 128 of the Sidebar podcast, Remar states that he was fired from the production because he was busted for possession of drugs. He said that this was a period of his life where he had developed a terrible drug problem. Remar still appears in the finished film. This is it. He is seen for one shot when the Marines enter the alien nest. Because he is seen from behind wearing the same armor as Michael Bain, it's impossible to tell the difference between the two actors.
Well, in the end, I think it worked out because I love Michael Bain, and I think he's one of the weird characters actors, sorry, where I'm not quite sure why he wasn't a massive movie star, because in every film he's in the 80s and early 90s, like Terminator, Aliens, The Abyss, Tombstone, he's so fucking good in Tombstone as Roscoe. And you're like, oh, even in The Rock, he's great in The Rock. And you're like, oh, this guy's, and of course, you know, he has a kind of like a character he plays. But then he just kind of falls off the map for so long until he shows up in like Far Cry Blood Dragon, bizarrely. And although there is a bit, you know, he has come back recently. He was in The Mandalorian. Yeah, he played a small role in that. But I look at Michael Biehn and I'm just like, he's so good in everything he's in.
Oh, Michael Bihn's
why
great.
wasn't he a massive star in like the late 90s and 2000s? It's bizarre and such a shame because I love Michael Biehn.
According to a poem, when James Remar was still cast in the role of Hicks, Remar was using an Ithaca Model 37 pump-action shotgun, the one that Hicks says, I like this for close combat.
Close encounters. Close encounters,
sorry, yeah. And he accidentally blew a hole in the set of Frank Oz's The Little Shop of Horrors, which was being shot on an adjacent stage to Aliens at Pinewood Studios. Matthews then said to Remar, where the fuck did you get live ammo?
Yeah, it's one of those stories, like, is that true? I don't know, but it's a great story. The idea that he's so off his, like, in my head now, I've got the story built that James Remar was so off his tits with drugs, he's accidentally loaded, like, there's, like, the prop shotgun, but he's like, oh, I just accidentally brought mine from home, and then he's nearly shot fucking one of the cast members in Little Shop of Horrors. Like, you can totally imagine, like, Rick Moranis on the other side, like, what the fuck is going on? I thought we were making a family film here, Jesus Christ.
So I've only got a couple more. Stop Your Grinning and Drop Your Linen. Hudson stole that from the ACD song Shake a Leg, and he's admitted
he's a great pussy in this film. Like, he's such a skirt. As soon as things go wrong, man, you know, you think of Gorman not being cut out for it. You think of these guys, they've all been in battle together, but that scene in the Hive, like, he clearly loses the plot early doors. But because it's Bill Paxton, because he's so good, you still like him despite the fact that he's clearly
some of his lines are fantastic. I think I said to you before we started recording, when he's on about not surviving for 17 days, and 17 days, mind, is a random number. They're not going to find us for 17, or they won't contact us for 17 days. That's a random number.
Yeah.
But he starts going, we're not going to survive 17 hours, let alone 17 days. And Ripley turns around to him and goes, she survived here with no weapons.
No training.
No training for longer than that. Why don't you put her in charge? That's just one of the best.
And it's I never noticed before that two of the most iconic lines in the film are within 10 seconds of each other. Like when the ship, like the ship comes back from the Sulaco when it crashes, and obviously they've just escaped the Hive, and Ripley's driven them out in the APC, and they're waiting for the dropship to come pick them up, and obviously it crashes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's great, man. Game over, man. Game over. That is followed by they mostly come out at night. Mostly. Like, they're right next to each other. It's just like, my God, two of the most iconic lines in the film.
And hates that line. Because obviously all her friends just quoted to her all the time.
Well, if she had gone on to make 100 films, that line would still be quoted to her forever.
Everyone who ever quotes that line, they mostly come out at night. Mostly. You put a gap between the mostly. But she doesn't. She doesn't.
Yeah, it just feels
they mostly come out at night. Mostly.
Yeah, but it's the way she says it, mostly. And it's weird, isn't it? Like, you think of all the great performances in this film and all the, you know, the amazing scenes. But we put up obviously a picture of the movie, you know, ahead of the podcast. And the only thing that ever gets quoted is that line. Yeah. You know, even I would say game over, man, game. Like, you know, game over is a famous line. But the one I would say 90% of people go to is Newt. Yeah. They mostly come out at night. Mostly. Yeah. And like I said, her performance, it is amazing. That is her only performance is so good in this film. And because it's such a horrifying position for her to be in. Like, it's only when you stop and think about it, like, you're stuck on an alien world. Everyone else, including your brother, and you know, nobody calls her Rebecca. Oh no! Oh God, I was going to do the quote, but it just dropped out of my head.
Nobody calls her Rebecca except
my brother. Yeah, her brother who calls her Rebecca, her parents, all the other colonists. Everyone is dead, and as far as she is concerned, she is stuck on a planet on her own with a bunch of fucking dragon monsters trying to kill her. And it's like, talk about worst nightmare scenario, and she totally sells it. Like when they find her, like the state she's in with the hair. I mean, she looks a little bit like my wife when she wakes up in the morning. But it's just, I think it's a great performance by her, and it as I said, it boggles the mind that was the only one.
And the last thing I got then was a director trademark.
Mm-hmm.
James Cameron is kind of in love with Michael Baine's hand. So Michael Baine character gets bitten on the hand by another character. So it's happened here, The Abyss, and Terminator.
That's bizarre. Yeah, you get when you try to get Newt out at the start, she bites him on the hand. Yeah. That's a weird. It's kind of like Quentin Tarantino and Uma Thurman's feet.
Yeah,
just a bit of an odd one.
Random.
I don't think I've got many more. But most of them I think we've covered. At the start, and funny enough, when we were watching him, I was saying like there's that great scene with it looks like a kind of a fancy eye machine or a camera system where it cuts through the door. Obviously, it's on Ripley's ship; she's still frozen, and it has that great beam thing. It looks absolutely amazing. I love the look of it. But she's like, "Why the fuck did they cut through the door?" It's like, why didn't they just open it? You can still see the spear gun that she used in Alien to jam the door. It's still there. Wow. So that is the reason that the machine is brought in, because the door is still jammed. So that's why it has to cut on the door. And obviously it adds to the drama because that's a really great opening sequence. Cut to the door, spear gun. I think you've cut. The alien sound is supposedly a baboon shriek. And when I read that, I was like, yeah, I could totally hear it. When you see the aliens again in the, I keep fucking up they're not quite, what are they, ducks, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, the air ducks. Yeah. I'd call them
the air ducks. Yeah. When you see the aliens running and they're kind of scuttling after them, to get the speed up, they're actually being dropped vertically. Those shots are vertically rather than horizontally. Yeah. So the stunt guys in the suits are being dropped down. So that's why when you see it, you can actually notice that they're not getting much purchase on the wall. It does almost look like they're floating. And the reason is because they're being dropped to add speed, which I thought was a pretty cool one. The Alien Queen is actually, as I'm sure you would have guessed, there's no special effects. Well, there's no special effects in CG. It's a massive puppet, and it took 14 to 16 people to operate. And you notice it in one scene, when she sees the alien for the first time, and you can see the Queen Alien kind of peeking around the corner, and you're just like, that's probably all they had of the puppet for that scene. So it's just like, you just get in the head, and that's all you're getting in the shot. And I think I mentioned earlier that those awesome trainers that Ripley are wearing are repurposed Reebok. I assume they're Reebok pumps. But you see, I'm pretty sure one shot, I think it's in the, whatever you want to call it, the egg room, the throne room, whatever. I think you can actually make out that they're very clearly Reeboks, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it for facts. In terms of soundtrack, James Horner is probably not one of the most famous names when you attach to scores, but he's done a lot of Cameron's biggest films, Titanic, Avatar, all your favorite. Yeah. But I think, whatever you say of his track record, the main thing with this film is that way, again, that he mixes sci-fi with that militaristic tone. Like, it totally sets the film, the tone of the movie throughout, that this is a war film, that this is a different film to Alien.
It's quite ironic, because he went on record saying he felt rushed to do a score for this. Mm-hmm. So he had to repurpose some music from like Star Trek 3 or 2 or something, and other films. So the fact that it's a good soundtrack and it's quite iconic now, and he's saying,
I think the score's great.
He was rushed to do it. He didn't have the time he wanted, so he had to repurpose other sounds. I think it's used quite well in this film.
Mm-hmm. Well, like sometimes that works out the best, doesn't it? I can't remember the saying, but the whole limitations of I can't think of the saying. It doesn't matter. But the point is, it does that great job of, it doesn't lose the tone of the original film, but like Cameron's world building, it just keeps building on top of what's already there and adding something new. And I think a big part of that is the score by James Horner. So I think it is a fantastic score.
Yeah.
In terms of what would you prefer to see next, video game or legacy?
Well, let's go legacy, because video games. Video games falls into legacy. So let's go.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I mean, legacy is a tricky one, because obviously when people think of, it's a beast now, isn't it? Obviously, there's comic books, there's video games,
there's novels,
board games, there's merchandising, there's extended universe. It's got everything. It's not quite Star Wars level, but it's not far off. And but when I think of legacy, first and foremost, what I think of is the other movies.
Yeah.
And there's no two ways about it. Alien and Aliens, like the Terminator franchise, they stand so far head and shoulders above the other films.
Yeah.
Like Alien and Aliens, you could make an argument for which one's best. A lot of times it's just down to personal preference. If you said your favorite film was Alien, I'd have no argument. It's an equally fantastic film. After that, we could spend all day talking about Alien 3 and how they shit the bed right from the off, all the problems there. I think it's a brave choice to try and make, notably different films. Like they do all feel unique, the first 4 films.
Yeah, well, the third one, because we've already said the first one is like a suspense thriller or a suspense horror. The second one is a straight up action film. The third one is like a slasher film.
Yeah.
And the fourth,
so gritty.
The fourth one, the fourth one is like a B movie action.
Yeah, it's going more for the Aliens vibe for sure. But obviously with convicts rather than soldiers, like an ensemble piece. But it's so brown, that film. It's aggressively brown, Alien Resurrection. I'm really not a fan of Alien Resurrection at all. And of course, you're straight from the off, you're trying to make something happen by bringing Ripley back. And the same way with the fact of the matter is, Aliens was the perfect place to stop. You didn't need to go any further. And of course, money talks and stuff like that. And there are positive, like Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. I don't think they're terrible films. I don't think any of them are terrible in the same way that Terminator Genesis is terrible, for instance. No. I just don't think they're just not in the same league. And it gets
terrible. It gets terrible when you want to make prequels. They shit the prequels.
Well, the weird thing, I mean, at least with Ridley Scott, he really is trying to do something completely different. Because let's be clear, as much as they're Aliens films, Aliens, Alien Resurrection really is the Ripley saga. There's no ways about it. It's as much about the relationship between Ripley and the alien as it is anything else. Whereas obviously Prometheus is more the lore, isn't it? It's, the wider universe. And I know a lot of people hate Prometheus. I think Prometheus is a really, really interesting failure. It doesn't quite work, but I think there's some great stuff in it. I think we've had this argument before. I would take Prometheus and Alien Covenant over Alien Resurrection any day of the week.
Oh, no.
Although Alien Covenant's worth it just for the fingering line. Let's be clear. I remember sitting in the cinema, and when he's talking to himself and saying about, "I'll help you with the fingering," or
you blow and I'll do the fingering.
Oh, dude, because I watched it on my own because my wife wisely said she didn't fancy it, and I remember just like looking around the cinema, like, "Oh, did you just hear that? That was like the gayest line in cinema history in an Alien film. What the fuck?" It was unbelievable. Alien Covenant's not a great film, but Prometheus, I kind of stand by Prometheus. I think it's, as I said, I would, generally speaking, in cinematic terms, I would take an interesting failure over a boring, 5, 6 out of 10, But that's just me. But, even once you get beyond that, then you get into the whole mess of Aliens versus Predator, which was all established. That's like very much in the comic books. And then the seed was sown, as it were, in Predator 2, the end of Predator 2, which isn't a great movie, but it has that scene on the Predator ship where there's an alien skull. And they're like, "Oh, we could totally do it." And I was, I grew up with the comic books, with the movies. I love Predator as well. I'm not going to lie, I wanted Aliens versus Predator as well. I'm like, I knew it could end poorly, but I was like, I'd love to see that on screen. The problem is, they're some of the worst films ever, man. Like Aliens versus Predator is terrible, but Aliens versus Predator Requiem is one of the worst films I've ever seen.
Oh, they doubled down on the terrible for Requiem.
It is so bad. But as I said, I mean, at this point, do you want to see any more Alien? Like, obviously, you'll never stop with the comic books, with, the toys, the merchandise. That stuff will go on forever. But do you want to see any more Aliens films?
No, because straight away, no. Because there's only one way they're going to do it now. They can't really continue. No, sorry. So I don't want any more prequels either. Just stop doing what you're doing with these Covenant, with the Prometheus. I don't want that.
I agree.
The sequels as well are not going to work now, because you're going to keep trying to bring some sort of relation back with Ripley. If you're going to do an Aliens film, it needs to be just Aliens, just another standalone Alien story. Don't try and bring it to any of the original characters except for the aliens. For me, that's the only way you're going to do it, to start afresh. But the way they're going to do it, they're going to end up doing remakes.
Yeah, that is the problem, is that it's like if you end up just removing, obviously at least Ridley Scott tried to do something completely different with Prometheus and Covenant. Well, Covenant was kind of taking a step back maybe, but with Prometheus in particular, he was almost like, listen, we can't do another horror film. I've already done that, and he's already done it perfectly with Alien. We can't do another Soldiers versus Aliens, because what's the point? Aliens is the perfect example of that. Like, they really did perfect those movies first go. So it's like, at least with Prometheus, and it didn't always work, but he tried to do something completely different. So it's like, and that didn't really work. So like you said, if you do a TV show or another movie, what you end up doing is just raking over the coals. You're just doing the same shit again, only not as good. You end up with another Terminator 3 situation where you're just like, oh, we're just kind of remaking Terminator 2, but not as well, because, you know, with all the will in the world, you're not going to make a film as good as Aliens. You're just not going to. And if you do the horror version, it won't have the same impact, because everyone knows what a fucking alien looks like now. And two, it just won't be as good as the Ridley Scott original. So no, let's just, as much as I don't think that's going to be the case, especially Fox being with Disney now, they'll see dollar signs for sure.
Yeah.
I would happily just see this put to bed.
Does that mean the Alien Queen is now a Disney princess?
I'm willing to go with that. Yeah. I'm willing to go with that. I'm not sure how she's. I don't think she gets on well with others. So I'm not sure we're going to have her kind of frolicking about with Pocahontas or, you know, Elsa. Is it Elsa from Frozen? I don't know why I went there, but anyway,
I'll let it go.
But Jesus Christ, you had to. It was low hanging fruit, man. I set you up for it. In terms of the video game section, this again, you could go on for days.
Oh God, this is extensive.
Aliens in particular is so perfectly suited to video games, and obviously it's had such a big impact on video game design for, you know, ever since 1986. But there are tons of very bad Aliens video games, none more so than the one that should have been fantastic. What was it? Creative Assembly with not Creative Assembly, sorry, Colonial Marine by Gearbox. That was the one where everybody saw it and went, "This is the game. This is the game we've all been waiting for." A Colonial Marine style alien video game where you go in as a unit, you clear out the aliens, and they somehow fucked it up, man. Like, that was one of the biggest disappointments of that generation. It was the era of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox, and there was a big thing about the fact that the footage they were using originally, you know, it was all PC, and they were, you know, they weren't truthful in terms of what the game would look like. The fact of the matter is, visuals aside, it wasn't a very good video game. It was a massive disappointment. But there have been a lot of good ones. There was obviously the Aliens versus Predator games on the PC. They were very good for a number of years, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. I think Aliens was the first ever genuinely good movie tie-in I played on the Commodore 64. I remember having it on tape back in the day. Most people wouldn't have played it, but it's almost like an on-rail shooter. It's quite bizarre, but it was a really good game back in the day. But the weird ones, my favorite ones, are both kind of like Metroidvanias. It might not be a very good film, but Alien 3 had some fantastic video games, really good video games, which had nothing to do with the film other than Ripley's shaved head.
The arcade game cabinet was great for the Alien one.
Yeah, the Alien arcade cabinet was really good. And there's a game, a little known, it's a bit of a shame because it's a great game. Alien Infestation on the Nintendo 3DS by Way Forward and Gearbox is a fantastic Metroidvania, which still totally stands up. And funny enough, Way Forward actually made a very similar game for, of all things, The Mummy, you know, the Tom Cruise film? It's called The Mummy Demastered, and nobody paid attention to it because The Mummy was a terrible film. And it's a shame because that video game is fantastic. But the other one, obviously, Alien Isolation from Creative Assemblies, which was released in 2014. That's maybe the best of the bunch, but it's an Alien game. Yeah. It's not an Aliens game. It's very much tonally, the whole deal. It's very much an Alien rather than Aliens game. But the upcoming, in terms of what I'd like to see, it's the game that's coming up. Aliens Fireteam is a kind of 3-player co-op action game where you go in as a unit of Colonial Marines in a Left 4 Dead style kind of video game. And it's like, in terms of what I want to see from an Alien video game, that's it. So hopefully that'll deliver the goods. But that's coming out, I think, next year. So fingers crossed for that one. But that's very much, you know, that ticks all the boxes in the same way, funny enough, that Colonial Marines did. But hopefully it won't be the shitstorm that game was.
Pretty much the same for me. Aliens Fireteam upcoming is from what I've seen of it, is how I would want to see a game for this franchise. So I can't really turn around and like bring Naughty Dog into this or anything like that today.
No. Well, that's what you want to see from it. They've already made the perfect Alien game with Alien Isolation. So hopefully Aliens Fireteam will be to Aliens what Alien Isolation was to Alien, ostensibly. But I think that's pretty much it for this week. All that's left to do is
ratings.
The ratings, easy for me. 5 stars. It's one of my top 10 films of all time. It totally holds up. And of course, if somebody's not seen it before, I'm like, I still think this is one of the greatest action sci-fi films of all time. Go and see it if you haven't seen it somehow.
Yeah, there's no more I can say to that. Spot on, 5 stars. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go and see it.
Easily done, easily done. Okay, so the only thing left is what we're doing next week.
Well, this is actually because we couldn't agree last week if this was a recommendation from some request from somebody or not this film. But the next week's film is actually a request that we've had a couple of times. The Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah, I was surprised how many people wanted us to do Flight of the Navigator. People seem to really love this film. I got to be honest, I don't have the same kind of attachment to it, so I think this is going to be a really interesting one.
It is going to be an interesting one because I'm the same. I don't have... If I think of 80s films, Flight of the Navigator is not up there for me.
No, it's down the list. I've seen it a couple of times, but it's not, like I said, I don't know this film. It's like watching Aliens yesterday. I know this film verbatim. I do not know Flight of the Navigator verbatim. So I think this is going to be an interesting one to revisit it. I hope you'll join us for that next week. But yeah, this has been the Aliens Podcast. I'm Liam. This is Rob. Thanks for joining us, man. Cheers. Oh yeah, and before I forget, because I always forget, here's Rob telling you where you can actually find us.
Yeah, so we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Hey You Guys 80s or at Hey You Guys 80s. And we're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any emails, any recommendations, or any reviews you have. But whilst we're on about that, wherever you get your podcasts, please also smash the subscribe button. Yes, I said smash.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Leave us a review. And leave us some 5-star ratings as well, but make sure they're 5-star ratings.
Yeah. We're not interested in 1 star, 5 star. If it's not going to be 5 star, don't go smashing anything. Just leave your opinion to yourself. 5-star ratings only. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.